Infinite love, life, and a good vibration. Aaron is on tonight on the gram, and I want to hear what he got to say. Cause who gonna be the check to put? Who gonna put Aaron in check? Nobody. I know y'all gonna let that man speak his mind. I know that's what y'all ain't gonna try to do is try to shut this man out after he been suffering all these goddamn years. What you gonna do? You gonna let Aaron speak his goddamn on mind, okay? That's what y'all gonna do. Put some respect on Aaron's name. That's a powerful name, whether y'all know it or not. Infinite love life.
And when you're right, I don't know if y'all have ever been in a situation where you was right, like you knew, like I like to use relationships. Have y'all ever been with somebody and you just knew, couldn't nobody tell you nothing? You knew that this was the one for you. But later on, you start realizing that that's not the case. And sometimes when we're right, and we know, we can go to a place, and I realize the name of that place. It's called denial. And when I look at the behavior of humanity or people, even though our situation is on the extreme end, there's other examples I can think of where people do some very silly things. For example, I think about somebody who's a gambler. I think about somebody that's a gambler, and they could lose thousands of dollars, thousands of dollars. But in that person's mind, because they believe they're a winner, they keep thinking and telling themselves that the next one is going to be the big one. And when you're in a cult, and that your information is the top information, and that your decision to be a part of this group was the right decision, you will fight to keep that decision as the right decision, even in the presence of contradictory evidence. Even though this situation is an extreme case of denial, denial is not a foreign concept. So I realized that as I continue to examine my experience, my answers to the same questions will begin to change as I continue to look at this over and over and over again. And so for the people who like to ask, why are you still talking about this? Because the verdict was the end of the case, but it was not the end of carbonation. There is so much to be looked at about this, at least for me. There's missing pieces to this puzzle that have yet to be told. What was going on? What was Eligio Bishop saying on the phone that kept the current members there? What did Malia experience behind closed doors that nobody was there to see? What is the motive for Juju and Jax to keep doing what they're doing? What is the operating system that is running the current cult members? This is not even close to being over. At least not for me. I thought the case studies was in the morning too. But I had this thought and I was like, what would be the point to withhold this until in the morning? Because a lot of y'all have some very relevant input and feedback. Somebody used the word layers in a comment on one of my posts. And I was like, layers. That word stuck out so much to me, layers. For example, depending upon how many layers you've peeled back within yourself, or how many layers a person has peeled back in their own life and their own thinking, you'll get different answers to the same question. I can ask everybody in here the same question, and depending upon the layers each of us have peeled back within ourselves, we'll get a different answer. And so as I peel back the layers in my own experience, my answers to these questions will also change. For example, if I ask somebody in person, right? If I say, how did you get here? One person might say, well, I drove my car. And if I ask another person, how did you get here? They might be like, man, it's a long story, man. You know what I'm saying? Same question, different person, depending upon that person's ability to peel back the layers in their own life, in their own mentality. It's crazy how the people who at one point I considered inferior are turning out to be quite intelligent and interested in this just as much as I am. Definitely Darcelli. And I think that what I want to do and what I will continue to do is make carbonation not so much of a phenomenon, but rather look at the principles of the situation or the root of the situation and how it's not so far-fetched that we found ourselves in this situation. And I will continue to use relationships because that seems to be the most relative point. How many of you have been in relationships and you didn't see things about yourself or the person you was in a relationship with until the relationship was over? And so for people to say, I don't see how y'all did this and I don't see how y'all did that, how many of y'all have done some things that you in the past that you look at now, you're like, I can't believe I did that for that person. I can't believe I had that person have me doing X, Y, and Z. Is the foundation not the same, but the circumstance different? Yeah, I like that. Get your life 77. Hindsight is 2020. Very good. Somebody asked the question. And yes, that's why, yeah, the sad part is that the cult is still going, and that's why we will continue to talk about it. B Southern usually has a series of good questions. Do you think you all were under demonic influence or possession? I don't want to call it demonic influence because that opens up too much of a hocus pocus type perspective. I think what the term I would like to use is undue influence. Steve Hassan uses something called the BITE model. BITE. It's an acronym for mind control. And people think mind control is this hypnosis magical experience, but it's a set of guidelines that can be used to influence somebody. The BITE model is an acronym that stands for behavior, information, thought, and emotion. If you can control and influence these four aspects of a person, you have successfully exercised mind control, controlling behavior, controlling information, controlling thought, and controlling emotion. That's a good question, but ironically, there is no advice you can give a cult member. To leave a cult is a completely individual choice. I attempted to reach out to Juju and Jax, but I completely understand why they were not open to discussion because I would have not been open to discussion. Whenever somebody leaves a cult, automatically they become an enemy. They become a demon. They become, you know, the quote unquote lower self. And there is no compromising with someone who leaves the cult. There's no understanding. It's just that you're wrong because you left. And honestly, I think that Juju, I often ponder about what is Juju's and Jack's motive. But I really think that they feel like they beat us. You know, I feel like Juju and Jax have something to prove. I feel like their pride is connected to the fact that they beat, you know, myself, Courtney. They feel like they outperformed people who at one time they used to look up to. Because I don't know if y'all know, in carbonation, your rank was often connected to how long you had been there. So typically, someone like myself, Courtney, Dalen, you know, we were A team. A team, were those who were the most trustworthy, had the most responsibility, and also had the most privilege. We ate first, we got to go certain places. We got uplifted and celebrated in ways that the other guys didn't. So I would imagine that Juju and Jax feel some type of pride for outperforming me. Now that I think about it. And I'm definitely open to correction. But right now, using my own personal experience and my own good judgment, I think Juju and Jax feel really proud outperforming me in their mind. Look at us. We're still holding it down. And, you know, Captain True, he turned his back, but I didn't. And it's an internal accomplishment that really has no bearing outside of the group. And honestly, I think that, and this is just a guess, but I think that this is the first time that Juju has felt important. And when you give somebody a sense of purpose, it is very hard for them to let that go. And so I think that Juju and Jax are potentially using me as some type of a marker for success and achievement. It's kind of like Survivor. The theme for Survivor is outwit, outlast, outplay. And so I think that they feel quite accomplished in being able to, represent the Messiah in his darkest hour. That's just a speculation. I'm not a psychologist. But I don't have to be, because this is Colts. And not every psychologist is adept in understanding Colts. I think that being a Colt expert is its own unique field. I mean, look at Rick Ross. Rick Ross is clearly a Colt expert, and he doesn't have any formal education whatsoever. So I believe that I might possess some type of insight that not even the college students got. But let me not gas myself up here. Question, Pat. That's interesting. But in this moment, I, I am convinced that denial is a is one of the primary reasons why myself and others, and even the current cult members, continue to remain underneath the mentality of carbonation. Yeah, I don't, Arco, I don't think I fully accept the magnitude of being able to not only have experienced a cult, but to come out of one. Because that's not the case with everyone. Veganism heals. I challenge that belief. I don't want to take it away from you, but you represent a lot of people. I've heard that statement over and over again. A lot of people believe that carbonation was on the right track at first and somewhere along the lines began to veer off course. But I would like to argue, because I was actually there, that growing food doesn't take 6 years. Building a village doesn't take 6 years. Eligio Bishop had more than enough financially to begin growing a garden and at least building some huts. And a lot of people ask this question. It rings in my mind so clearly now. One of the common questions people would ask, what do you got to show for it? What do you got to show for it? What do you got to show for it? I mean, there's people right now who have sustainable villages. It doesn't take 7 years to grow a garden. It doesn't. And Eligio Bishop's answer would always be, what I'm building is something that can't be seen. I'm building something in the metaphysical realm. So for those who believe that carbonation started out as something great and lost its way somewhere along the line, I'd like for you to look at what was produced during those so-called beginning stages. Nothing. All you saw was a presentation of an idea. And that idea of what carbonation was to you grew in your mind. But that has no bearing on the lack of growth that was actually occurring in real life. A lot of people get confused with the idea of what they thought carbonation was versus what it actually is. So I challenge the belief, not the person. I don't even have time to argue with a singular person. It's not even that serious. I'm here to challenge ideologies. If Eligio Bishop's original intent was to grow food and build a sustainable village, why was he buying dirt bikes? Why was he buying ping pong tables and basketball goals? What type of idiot buys ping pong tables and basketball goals before he's established his agriculture? I would like to challenge that belief. You mean to tell me with $300,000 you can't build a garden? Hey, what's going on? Uh, I don't know if you want me to say your real name, but I'll call you Enlightened Gypsy. I'll keep your name private because I know how folks is, but I know who you are. But yeah, thank you for coming in, and I hope that you will share your experience, continue to share your experiences as well, um, because everybody that was there, their experiences is valid. Doesn't matter how long you was there. Exactly, knowledge base. You hit it right on the head. I couldn't have said it better myself. Carbonation was never on track. He just talked the talk, but never walked the walk. Couldn't have said it better myself. A lot of people fell in love with their own idea of what they wanted carbonation to be. And some of those people to this day are having a hard time believing that they were misled, maybe not as much as we were, but they also have to let go of the idea of what they thought carbonation was and who they thought Eligio Bishop was. It was always the same agenda from the very beginning. Carbonation is like McDonald's menu. What you see on the screen ain't what's in the bag. Does the cult leader have contact with them from prison? From my understanding, he's not allowed to be on the phone for 2 weeks while he's in processing. Does he have a phone in there? I don't know. Um, have those rules changed? I don't know. But I'm sure Eligio Bishop will try to go live the first chance he get to tell his perspective about what's happening so that he can continue to keep his current followers indoctrinated in their belief in him the same way Warren Jeffs has his followers continuing to support him, even though he will never see the outside of a prison. So when Eligio Bishop goes live, when he's on the phone, it's not for us. He know we don't care about him. He saw that in the courtroom. He'll continue to say, I have a lot of support, but the cameras in the courtroom says otherwise. And so Eligio Bishop being on the phone, he's not talking to us. He, he knows nobody supports him, but he knows. You know what terrifies Eligio Bishop more than anything? He knows that if he loses Aya, Efru, and Malia, he's lost everything. He has nobody in his direct family that's actually related to him who cares enough to not only not show up in the courtroom, but definitely won't be visiting him in prison. So if he loses Aya, Efru, and Malia, he knows it's a wrap. So he's gonna do everything he can. He doesn't care about Jackson Juju. But if he loses Aya, Efru, and Malia, he's lost his connection to the outside world. Because Nature Boy knows the quality of people who's actually writing him messages. He knows the quality of people and the mindset they're in. The types of people that sending him messages, Chief, we love you. He knows these people are kind of mentally off. But he knows Aya, Efru, and Malia are valuable and they're intelligent. He knows if he loses them, he's going to be stuck with some mentally ill people messaging him things like free to three, but won't even put $3 on his books. Exactly. This man ain't got no brother that'll show up. He ain't got no sister that'll show up. None of the mothers of his children. Come on, man. Exactly. The Precious Mari.